Hey everyone, behind me is the Hyundai Kona Active. This is a 2019 model and I'll be doing a review on it today. Now, if you're wondering about the location, I'm in far north Queensland in Australia and I'm in a coconut plantation currently. So it's a nice backdrop for the start of this review. So back to the car review. Firstly, what I'll do is I'll take you around the exterior of the car and we'll have a good look at the exterior. Then we'll hop in the car, have a look at the interior and some of the features in the car. Then finally, we'll go for a drive in the car and I'll talk about how the car is like to drive on the actual road. Now, if you do like my videos, please feel free to subscribe by pressing the subscribe button just down below. So having a look at the Hyundai Kona from the outside, I think it's an interesting looking car. This one's in the sunset orange color, so it looks a bit of an in between of red and orange, I think. So and it's not definitely a color that stands out, and I think if you purchase one of these, you want it in a color that stands out. So having a look at it, this one's got the 16-inch wheels. I think they look really small on this sort of car, which for a small car is kind of laughable saying that 16-inch wheels are small. If you want it to look more sporty, putting some bigger wheels on it, I would definitely recommend. You can see the brakes behind there, they're not looking massive, and the tyres, this has got 205 60 profile tyres on there. And then having a look a bit further around the car, and you can see it's got that two-tone colour, so it's got the black grey plastic running around the bottom and side wheel arches of the car. And then we'll take a look around the back of the car here, and you can see again quite an interesting look at the rear there. A lot of different lights there. I like the style there. It sort of looks a bit cheeky, I think, at the back there. You can't see any exhausts are completely hidden at the back there, and then you can just see the rear view camera which sits just above the number plate, as in most cars. And then we'll take a look around another angle of the car. You can see it's got the roof rails on there if you decide to put roof racks or something on the car. And then we'll take a look around the front of the car. So I'll just explain with the front of the car the setup here. So we've got the headlights, which are in an unusual position. You would think the headlights are actually those top lights, but in fact they aren't. So I'll just explain it to you a bit better. So you've got the DRL, so the LED day running lights that are here. The actual indicators are just up there. The actual headlights are here. It's got rear projections, but they're just halogens in there. And then you've got the high beams that are here. So an interesting sort of setup when you've got, it looks like when you've got the headlights on, they're actually your fog lights. Again, I really like the front. It's got an interesting little grille here. I think that's definitely just looks, because it's actually just the plastic and there's nothing in between there, so it's not in the intake or anything like that, but I think kind of looks cool. And as I said, I think I really like the design. It's something really different and really stands out. And I remember when I first saw these cars on the road, it took my attention to sort of having a look at the car, and there's something different on the road, something you don't usually see. And here again, another look at the outside of the car. Well, let's have a look at the inside of the car. So this car doesn't have any keyless entry, so you do have to unlock the car if you want to get in. There's no touch and unlock the car. So inside the Hyundai Kona now, and I've got to be honest, it's not really the most attractive looking cabin that I've seen before. So I'm just going to turn the car on so we can just see some of the display settings on the DIS here. In front of me you can see you just got those basic gauges, no virtual cockpit, so you've got the tachometer on your left, and just below that you've got the car temperature. In the middle you've got the DIS, which I'll take you through in a second, and then on the right there you've got the speedo and then the fuel. So we'll take a closer look at the options in the DIS. So you've got the digital speed there, shows me how many kilometers till it's empty, 473, and it is full at the moment. Temperature and the amount of kilometers the car's done. If I go through some of the other different options in this DIS, you can see it's got a compass here, and it also shows you the tire pressure here. And then I can take it to the settings. So they're just really basic settings, so just changing the door settings, the lights, and then the sound, and then some convenience options there. So having a quick look in those settings, so we can see the door settings, we can set like an auto lock or unlock, and then we can go just back there, and we can see the light settings here. So this is just like a one touch turn for your indicator there, and just like a headlamp delay, the automatic headlamps come on. And then you've got the sound options, so just the volume for the parking assist, and then like you can turn on or off the welcome sound that you heard when I turned on the car. And then you've just got some basic convenience options here for the wipers, the gear position pop-up, and then yes, your service intervals. And then in the other features, you've just got some of the different displays that you can have set up for the DIS system. And then yeah, just back to the reset. So it's fairly basic DIS system there. So if I take you around the rest of the cabin, we'll take a bit of a closer look. As I mentioned before, really not that fancy inside here. They've actually even used a bit of a cheaper plastic than what you've got in the i30, so I don't know why, but you know, it's the type of material that they've used. It looks even more basic than that of the i30. The seats, this is just the active model, so it's just got the standard cloth seats. Again, I think that they could kind of put a bit more effort in to make him maybe look a bit more nicer. Fairly basic looking around the cabin here. And we'll take a look at the infotainment system. So the infotainment system's a good size here. It's a 7-inch infotainment system, and it's got a whole heap of different options on it, which I'll take you through now. We can see it's got a sat nav integrated into it, which is really good. This screen, you can either use the shortcut buttons, which you can see on the side here, or it is a touch screen as well. So as an example, I can zoom in or I can zoom out of that satellite navigation system by just touching the screen. So just having a look at the options. So you've got the radio here. It does have a digital radio. You can tune into digital radio channel. It's got different media that you can connect. It's got Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. If you've got any of those devices, you can just plug it in there. And then you've just got your track selection, obviously there, your volume buttons on the left there. If we come back to the right, the map will take us back to that navigation system where we were on before. I can set up the actual where I want to go on in the navigation system by pressing the nav button. The navigation system is pretty good in this, so it does actually tell you where the fixed speed cameras are, and does also give you speed alerts as well. So when the speed limit is changing, it gives you an alert to check your speed, and it also actually shows the speed limit on the navigation there, so that's pretty good. If we look at where it's got a favorites, we can set up there buttons. We want to have certain favorites set up on there, and then we can just go to the setup so we can see the different options that it's got in here. So you can see it's got the navigation, we've got different sound options we can go into. We can look at the display there, so the brightness, how we want the display to look. And then if we go have a look, it's obviously got Bluetooth. You can project from your phone straight onto this device, date and time, and language, and then just the keyboard sort of settings there. And then it's got the second page there with just a look at the screensaver settings, some further advanced settings. We just check what's in there. So not too much in there, just some different functions there for the steering wheel and the different buttons within the car. Go back and we can just see that there's got the system information there. So fairly basic infotainment system, but I think it's got most of everything that you sort of need there. Now if I take you down, this has just got air conditioning. It's no climate control, so if you go up on my model, you will get climate control in there. Got two USB sockets down here. One you can see in the middle there next to the auxiliary plug, and then another one here in I'll just uncover there for charging. You've also got the 12-volt socket here, cigarette lighter down there. If I take you back down here, just the standard gear stick there. It's got Tiptronic, which you can utilize via the gear stick here. You've got hill hold assist here, and then you've got your driver mode button, so you can go into different driver modes, which I'll speak about later when we go take the car for a drive. Standard handbrake here, a few cup holders, then you've just got your center console there, got another glove box there for storage, and then we'll just take you around to the steering wheel. So the steering wheel, it's a good size steering wheel. You've got your buttons there on the left, which I'll show you quickly. So you've got your voice recognition. You then got your mode button, which will switch you between either digital radio, standard radio, or AM or FM radio, or it will switch you between different media sources. You've then got your volume controls, and then your seek buttons here, which just controls either the different tracks that you're listening to or the different radio stations. You can answer or hang up the phone here, and then just behind there we've got our wipers as well. No Tiptronic on this in the steering wheel, just on the gear stick where I showed you before. Take you to the right here, it does have cruise control here, and then on the top left here, this is where I was controlling the DIS, which I was showing you before. And then you've got the different menu options within the DIS, which you can control here. And then you've got your, again, some cruise control buttons just there and also below. And then just behind there, you've got your blinker stalk and the headlight buttons there. This has got the traction control down here, which you can turn on or off. And then it's just got the dimming options and then the headlight leveling options there. You've got full automatic windows here, the unlock lock buttons, and you've got electronic mirrors here. All these seats are manual, so no automatic seat adjustments here. So that's the front of the cabin, and what I'll do is I'm going to jump in the back and then show you the rear seats and the room in the rear. In the back now, and to be honest, there's a reasonable amount of room for a small car. You know, that seat's fair way back, and I've still got a good amount of room here. The cabin, it is a bit tighter in the back here, as in if you had 3 adults in here, I think you'd start to get a bit squashed, but you can still fit 3 adults here on a short trip. You've got no rear air conditioning ducts in the back here, no map or cargo net carriers on any of the rear seats, which is kind of strange. I'm not sure why. The drivetrain doesn't come up too high, so that center seat is reasonably usable. In there, again, these sort of basic seats in the back here, and if you've got a child seat, it does have ISOFIT components underneath the seats there, so it's a bit easier to fit that child seat. That's the rear of the car, and we'll just take you around to the boot. So having a look at the boot here, it's not the biggest boot in the world, it's 361 litres, but I can tell you, trying to squeeze a fair bit amount of luggage in here was a bit tricky with other things like a pram and things like that. Really I ran out of space very quickly. So this doesn't have any sockets, so no charging sockets in the back of this boot, and you've got a bit more storage in here that you can see, and just under that storage you can see it's just got the basic space saver. So we'll just put that back, and so yeah, that's the boot, and it's got just the manual close, so no automatic closing for the boot. And have a look again from the back. Alright, let's go take this Hyundai Kona for a drive and see how it is on the road. So in the Hyundai Kona now. Now firstly, getting in the car, finding everything, turn the car on is really easy. Sometimes you get into some of these cars and it takes you a while to even turn the car on. You're looking for buttons, you're trying to get your feel for the car, but this was very easy. It doesn't have any start or stop, so it's simply you put the key in the ignition and you turn the key on. So that was really easy. Now, in terms of seating position, I think it's a really good seating position. I didn't have to make too many adjustments. It gives you a good view of the road. The visibility of the car, visibility is also really good. I noticed looking around the car that there's no real blind spots in the car. The only one I could notice, and I'll show you now, is just at the rear there. You can see the A-pillar just near the boot there. They've put a little window there to sort of try and reduce that blind spot there, but it is still a bit of a blind spot in the rear there. Keep an eye out in the background as well, because I'm on the Captain Cook Highway, also known as the Great Barrier Reef Drive, which is one of the most scenic drives in Australia. So although the weather's not the greatest, we should get some nice scenery in the background while I'm speaking about the car review today. In terms of technology in this Hyundai do give you a lot of free technology without having to tick any of the option boxes, even in the most basics of their setups of their cars. So this one being the Active, it's more lower range, but you still get things like emergency braking, you do get lane keep assist, and then lane departure alert. Then you've got the obvious things as well, which pretty much any car has today, which is the cruise control, your ABS brakes, and your traction control as well. If you went higher to the Highlander, what you'd also get is adaptive cruise control, you'd get blind spot alert as well. So a heap of technology available in these cars. The sound system in this, I think the sound system's actually quite good in this. Normally in these Asian built cars, they just don't stack up against the European cars in terms of sound system. Now I'm not saying this is a European grade sound system, but I think it's a lot better than some of the other Asian made cars that I've been in before. Now the brakes on this car, I think that's one thing that does let this car down a bit. I think that they feel a bit soft at times. Although the brakes are okay, I wouldn't say that the brakes are brilliant. Now the handling of this car I really like. It handles exactly like a hatchback, so you feel that you are in a hatchback, not sort of an SUV. And although they've obviously jacked up the ride height of this being a crossover, you really don't notice that with the handling. It really sits flat around the bends, and you really feel a lot of confidence with that handling, so they've done a really good job with that. In terms of how the car feels, I think that they could have done a bit better with the ride quality of it. As I said before, the ride height is higher on this, and it's got 16-inch wheels on it, and the tyres on this are really quite high profile. They're 60 high profile tyres, so they should be absorbing the bumps pretty well, but it still doesn't ride the smoothest, to be honest, and I'd expect that to be a bit better. The other thing I thought they could do a bit better was the actual noise in the cabin. So there's a fair bit of noise in the cabin. I don't know if it's the tyres that they put on this, or it's just the design and there's a bit of wind noise, but there is a bit of noise in the cabin, and they could have made it a bit more quieter in the cabin, so I'm just think that that's another area that they needed to improve on. The steering, they've done really well with the steering. I think the weight of the steering, it feels really good. Sometimes these cars feel a bit light or they feel too heavy, but I think they've hit a good spot with this. It's sort of, it's not too light, it's not too heavy, and as I said, it sort of works well with the handling of this car. At the moment I'm going through, which you may be able to notice or you may or may not be able to notice, I'm going through some tight bends here, and it really just, you can see it just sits so flat. So again, I'll talk about the handling again, because I think I'm really impressed with it. The performance of this car, so this one, the Active, has the 4-cylinder 2-litre non-turboed engine in it, and I've got to be honest, it's not the most impressive engine. It is a bit noisy at times, but it's okay, and in this class it's sort of middle of the range. It doesn't feel too underpowered, but if you do want to go the extra mile and pay a bit more for the 1.6 litre turbo engine, I would recommend it. So this 2-litre engine, this has 110 kilowatts in it and 180 newton meters of torque. If you go the 1.6 litre turbo engine, that has 130 kilowatts in it, and then more torque, 265 newton meters of torque. Now in terms of fuel consumption on this, the fuel consumption, Hyundai say, is a combined 7.2 litres to 100, and I would say they're probably spot on with that. I've been doing most of my driving on the highway, and this has been getting about that. If you go for the 1.6 litre engine, that is a bit better on paper. It is 6.7 litres to 100, but I guarantee you, if you start putting your foot down, you're going to chew a lot more fuel than that on the turbo model. This 2-litre engine, this one has standard 6-speed gearbox. If you go that 1.6 litre version, you'll get the 7-speed gearbox, which will be a dual clutch gearbox there. So what do I think about this car? Well, firstly, I'll start about the things I didn't like so much in the Hyundai. So at the start of this review, when I was taking you through the interior, I mentioned they didn't use the best plastics. In the i30, they've got more quality plastics, and I don't know why they didn't use the same plastics that they use in the i30 in this, because I just think when you hop in this, it just looks a bit cheap, and they could have done a better job of making it look a bit more better quality inside it. The other thing is the cabin noise, which I mentioned before. Again, I think they could do a better job making the cabin being a bit quieter on this, and then also the ride quality. It's just not the best ride quality, especially when it's riding on those 16-inch wheels. I just think it could be a bit smoother. But focusing on some of the positive stuff on this, firstly, I think the look, it's really different, it's unique, it's something you don't often see, and it really stands out. So when people first see it, it is a bit of a head turner, looking either whether it's parked or whether you're driving. And the other thing is the handling, really good handling. I also don't mind the gearbox. It's not a dual clutch gearbox, but it's really smooth. gearbox. I'm glad that they went with just the 6-speed gearbox instead of one of the CVT gearboxes, which I really don't like. So other than that, I think it's a good car. I'm not sure if it's a family car though. I mentioned again before the boot space, and I've been driving this around, and I had the family with me in this while driving this car around, and I felt that, you know, we're always struggling to squeeze everything in the boot. A pram only just fits in the boot, and then that's it. So that 361 litres in there, you seem to be looking for more boot space. But if it's just a city couple, I think the car's fine to use, and for 24,000 I think you can't really go wrong. So it's definitely something to look at. I have driven the crossover Eclipse, and I do think the crossover Eclipse drives a bit better than this, but it doesn't handle as well as this. So definitely have a shop around before putting your money down on the Kona, but definitely do take it for a drive to have a look at. Thanks for watching my videos, and if you do like them, please feel free to subscribe.